Game over, man. Game over.
Shut up, man. Is that Bill Paxton?
It is.
Is this your Bill Paxton impersonation?
The man from Twister.
Dude, he was also the dude.
Man from Twister.
He had the blue mohawk too in Terminator 2. At the beginning, he was one of the punks that gets beat up.
Yeah.
Bill Paxton's dope.
But no,
wasn't he president? He was also president in
different.
Bill Pullman.
Bill Pullman.
My bad.
Don't mess up the Bills.
I won't mess up the Bills.
Actually, Bill Clinton was president. Same timeline.
Same thing. He's like, I did not have sexual relations with that alien.
Welcome to the Couch Trolls Podcast with your hosts, Dave and Das Bruce.
How you doing, man?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
Not too shabby. What you been up to? What's new?
Not a thing.
How is it that you never have anything that's new?
Well, some of us have responsibilities in life, but mostly because I've just been so sucked into video games because the weather just hasn't permitted me to go outside.
That's still doing stuff, though, man. I mean, it doesn't have to be an activity outside of that. I'm just like curious, like, how'd your week go? What you been doing?
I don't know, dude. I struggle with the idea that I feel like if it's sunny or nice out, I feel like I have to be outside. But if it's like ice storm and terrible, I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to put pants on today.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I totally veg out.
You have kids. How are you not like getting lured into sledding like all the time?
Well, sledding's a lot of work, and as much as I love it, you actually have to have snow
but
to do it.
You work out too. Okay, so you're just... Well, I mean, dude, if there's a nice thin layer of hail, you can usually slide on stuff. You're good.
No, that's me going to the grocery store and falling on my ass, bringing in groceries.
Did you fall trying to get groceries?
No, but I've been real close where I like grabbed onto the door where I was like, I almost lost it, and then all I was like, it's like you're going
door of the store, like car door, or like
car door at my house.
Okay.
It's like, okay, you're falling. It's like you have like several things in your hand. Of course, the only thing you don't hold on to are the eggs.
Of course.
So I've broken eggs a few times coming home now, all thanks to our wonderful winter in Michigan.
Do you go and do you buy the organic eggs too, the expensive fancy ones?
Do I look fancy to you? I have a Game Over t-shirt on with an alien.
That is a pretty dope shirt.
That's not selling, pretentious egg eater.
Maybe you got things for eggs, man.
So I saw that Overwatch is really moving up in the PvE mode.
Oh, yeah.
How is it?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, that's how I spent a good chunk of my weekend was going over the new Overwatch stuff because it's literally what I do. I think I check Overwatch for updates and just play that.
It's a game for a service for you. I mean, you play that game so religiously, and since it's your like main game, it's pretty much a game for service for you, but the service is free.
I did, I love it because I don't have to pay for anything.
Like new character, new mode, new character, new mode.
And I love it.
You're like, I'm just going to play this game.
Dude, I actually did some competition this weekend, actually.
Good. You need to get in there. And if I recall, I tried to join you, and you're like, hey, I'll get back to you in a few minutes, and then Bruce never came back.
Well, that's because I got lured in by
by your friends.
By my friends. Well, look, you got kids, so like you're never on when I'm on, and then like when I'm on, I got like posses that I got to roll with, man. Okay, I got a tight crew. We got stuff down pat. We got who's the tank, who's the healer, who's the salt,
and you still don't win.
No, we actually do pretty well. Thank you very much.
So PvE, how is it?
PvE's pretty good. So last year they did the archives thing where they went back and they would do stories of like a little mission based on like the old files of Overwatch and everything, and they did that this year for like the Blackwatch thing. And have you gotten on there at all?
I haven't had a chance, but I did play the one last year, and just to kind of clarify for some of the listeners, PvE is player versus everyone, or is it? Oh man, I guess it's essentially it's
player versus enemy, because player versus enemy is player versus player. So
totally had a
brain. See, I'm the guy who has to know stuff. I drop the science. I bring the knowledge. Okay.
So you have the players versus the computers, and you have a cooperative mode where you're going
basically
through...
it's story mode, dude. It's story. You have a mission objective. You have a start and end to your mission, and you get to go through with other people in a cooperative sense to go and fight. And it's a 4-person group that you get, and it's prevalent to the storyline, which they really have not released much info of other than like some cinematics.
I'm okay with it. Overwatch is like hinting at lore all the time. I think all they do is they like to feed the fan base to make up their own fantasy stuff, and that's perfectly fine.
I like the fact that they're just trickling in lore, because the lore means that they've put enough time into the characters, but at the same time, they're still concentrating on the gameplay, which is essential.
Yep. And then, I mean, it does alternative, especially since I like the fact that you get to play co-op, because the game normally plays as a versus only kind of game. So it allows you to use characters in kind of a different way where you're really just thinking about how to help your...
Plus, you can set up specific scenarios for those specific character types, too. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's always fun.
Which is fantastic. So do you say this year is better than last year?
I think so. Yeah, I
think it's
definitely
better?
think that they kind of know a little bit more what they're doing. They're upping their game on that. And I'd like to see eventually just a, congruent storyline.
Is there more skins for it as well?
Congruent the proper word?
Not sure.
Oh, I dropped so much on skins, dude. I dropped 9,000 points on skins already.
So they're new skins for the new...
Oh, yeah.
newest mode. Okay, I'll have to check that out then.
Since it's the anniversary of it, they brought back the skins that they had for last year's event at a discount. So crap that I missed out on, I was able to pick up.
See, for me, every time I'll get new content, they'll always give me the content for the characters I don't use. And then it's like, oh, now I got to play with that character. I'll play with that character and be like, man, I really wish I got the skins for the other character.
It doesn't work that way.
No. And then, I mean, the reason I haven't had a chance to play it's because I've been really playing God of War. I mean, everyone's heard of God of War by now, especially...
God of War 4, right? Is this technically 4?
It's technically God of War.
What?
So what they
Don't
did
give
is...
me that bull crap. Okay, hold on. Timeline wise.
Okay.
Okay, so God of War started on PlayStation 2 back in the day. It was 1, 2, and then they had God of War 3 was on PlayStation 3.
Yep.
And then they did PSP spin-off, I think.
Yep, they did the PSP spin-off. And
Chains of Olympus.
Chains of Olympus, and then Ghost of Sparta.
Ghost of Sparta.
And then this one is technically the 6th entry, and they just went back to calling it God of War.
But this is back on the mainline storyline takes place after God of War 3 then.
Correct.
Okay.
And how a lot of the marketing has gone for it is they've kept it really tight where they're not explaining a whole lot of anything. But
There's him and a kid on the cover.
Really, the only thing I would personally want to spoil about the game is the fact that it is a continuation of the storyline, which they were never clear about when they marketed the game. And what they did is now you're playing a new game where you are helping your son kind of traverse through an adventure.
Okay, so the kid is your kid then.
Yep, it's your son.
Okay, so side question then. If people have not played any of the previous God of War games, is this a good jumping on point?
I actually think it is. It's really similar to the movie Logan. You could see the new...
Storyline-wise, the movie Logan?
In a lot of ways. Think of Logan, how you could never watch an X-Men movie or that crappy Wolverine Origins movie, and you could still watch that movie and still find a way to care about that character.
Still functions as a standalone.
Yes.
But if you do have previous knowledge, it just enriches that then?
Kind of, and I feel like they throw the subtleties of his past into the story to at least catch you up in the story. And overall, it works really well, but what they did is they reinvented the franchise. I mean, they not only did they throw a kid with you through the whole game.
Yeah, but I mean, dude, I don't want an escort mission the entire game. That's got to be meh.
Well, I'm assuming at some point when they were playtesting, they realized giving the kid a health bar was a bad idea, so they took the health bar away. So really, how he feels more like an assist character.
Okay.
You hit
so
square
you don't have to babysit him the entire time then?
You don't. Dude, he babysits you. You'll be one-on-one, fighting some guy, and then he'll come out of nowhere, jump on the monster's back, and start stabbing it in the neck.
Nice.
And it completely opens his guard up, and you can just start wailing on him.
Okay.
And what they did is they really, instead
of
having...
Do you control him at all, or...?
Slightly. There's a couple cinematic moments where you use his bow and arrow, but otherwise you hit square, and he kind of is a decoy, where he'll just randomly shoot arrows at the enemy that'll either function as a way to disrupt his combo, or it'll be a way just to get the attention of a giant troll that he can't hurt. And they use him in a lot of really cool ways just to kind of enhance the story for yourself. But on top of that, what they did is they brought the story, instead of being kind of over the... Remember how it's like a pulled back camera over the shoulder, but it's like...
I noticed that.
Far back. Well, instead of like a radius fight where you can kind of see people coming at you from all ways, they were like, you fight 2 or 3 enemies at a time. You don't fight an army anymore, because every enemy will kill you.
Okay.
So they cranked up the difficulty, and you can't see behind you anymore.
Well, yeah, because, that was the weird thing, because you have this, it's third-person perspective, but it's not, third-person action anymore.
No, it's very similar to what Resident Evil 4 is. How, with Leon Kennedy in the game, you see, it's almost like you have a camera sitting on your shoulder.
Okay.
So you are very tight
Gears of
to
War
the back.
style, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay.
And what they do is they kind of help by having the little bit of this little reticle that shows up red if there's something coming at you. So it gives you like a subtle notice that there's something coming at you, but it doesn't really gauge the distance
So
of
you're
it.
a Batman detective thing.
I honestly, I don't remember.
Do you remember Batman? You get that little symbol above your head, almost like a Spidey sense, and then you could like dodge
But see,
attacks.
Batman, you could still see kind of a full radius around you.
Yeah,
With
it's
God of
true.
War, you can't see anything behind you, so you get blindsided a lot in that game.
The original God of War was kind of crazy. It almost felt like not Samurai Warriors. What was the other one? Dynasty Warriors.
Dynasty Warriors.
Well, Dynasty Warriors, Samurai
Yeah,
Warriors,
you
kind of same
spam
thing.
attack. I mean, essentially, you're
just
spamming
spamming
attacks,
attack
but with
and just
quick
trying to
time
hit as many
events.
people as
The
possible.
quick time events is really what changed the game for the franchise compared to a lot of the other.
Hey,
because
quick time
I think
events in the
Devil May
original.
Cry. I mean, Devil May Cry was very similar, except it didn't have quick time events.
There was quick time events in the original God of War though, because like you have to go and like rip a monster's mouth.
Well, that's what I'm
open or
saying.
something.
That's what
Oh,
God
okay.
of War. That's what God of War brought to the PlayStation. That wasn't really. I'm sure there were games that had used them subtly, but God of War was like almost every enemy you could use a quick time event to kill them.
Yeah, fair enough.
And in the new game, they kind of have that as well, but they're not quick time events. It's like, oh, they're dazed, they're confused. An R3 button shows up. You hit R3 once, and it just does the action. But if it's like a boss, it'll bring up a quick time event. But it's so much more rare compared to the other games that it feels more fluid.
Okay, so you're not
combat.
getting overburdened with quick time events.
Not at all.
Like what was it? Splatterhouse did.
Oh yeah, but Splatterhouse was amazing. It doesn't
That
matter.
was still good. Yeah, still
Yeah.
a great game. But yeah,
Let's just throw a bunch of metal and a bunch of blood, and then random naked pictures of his girlfriend throughout the game.
Splatterhouse was fun, man.
Splatterhouse for 360 and PS3, excellent game.
Yeah, let's go pick it up.
Very
If you
mature.
have- Plus, didn't they have the original games on that disc too?
You could play. I think
you could unlock.
I remember playing the third one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember playing
Yeah,
the
you
third
could
one. I
unlock
think you
those.
unlock all three of them.
See, I was so happy when that came out, dude. I was super stoked because like I hadn't had a Splatterhouse game in years. I remember playing 3 on Genesis, and that was freaking fun. And they're all like, "Oh yeah, coming out for 360 and PS3," and I was like, "Dude."
Yeah, and that really did feel like it's basically that was just kind of the God of War style, and they just brought that to an existing franchise and made it their own game, which was fun. But I mean, with the God of War thing, you obviously have had to seen stuff online by now because it is so overhyped. I mean, the week
Is
it was
it though?
the week it was coming out, it was like Sony knew what they were doing because they usually, you release the
Trailer.
well, no, the embargo. They dropped the embargo.
What is the embargo?
So basically, what they do with publishers is they let IGN and Game Informer and a lot of these companies have the game early.
Oh,
and
it's
what
a
they
press
do,
pack, man.
no, but an embargo is when they're allowed to post about it.
Oh.
They're not allowed to just, hey, as soon as they play the game, just start throwing stuff on the internet. The publishers like to control when the content is released.
They go, "Hey, we'll give you an early copy of this, but any information, and you're allowed to release information, but you can start on this day of releasing your information about it."
So they completely control the leaking of the content, and this is really important for certain games. But games like Witcher 3, they got it like 3 weeks in advance to let the publishers really play into the game, really like think about what they're writing and to really do it. Games that are kind of not good, you can always tell like publishers are like, you can't put anything up until the day of release. Then that's sometimes that's how you can tell if a game's
Is that
gonna
how
be good
you
or bad.
gauge a game?
Sometimes it is because they're like, no, you can't do that one right now. You have to wait and wait and wait. But then there's games like God of War. They're like, oh yeah, you can post stuff up a week early. And they're like, oh, perfect 10s. And they're like, everyone's like, oh, this is a great, best game for this
Well, if you
system.
got a quality product, man, I mean,
And that's kind of what I'm saying is they knew what they had once they started playing it because this game, it impresses on all levels. There's no problems with the game. It looks great. It plays great. The story, so I haven't beat it yet. The story, I'm probably 18 hours into the game, still going strong into this game. And I mean, it is selling itself on its quality. I mean, even if it wasn't hyped,
it's a legacy game though, man.
I know, but God of War is a huge
Like that was a
deal.
PlayStation 2 seller. That was a
It was a system
It
seller
was
for sure.
violent. It had mythological lore. It had a great combat system. Like that sold systems.
Well, this one, I think this kind of falls in the same category. This is going to, if Horizon Zero Dawn wasn't enough to really push the PlayStation even further away from the Xbox.
You are
as far
riding
as,
PlayStation dick hard
how
all
can
the time.
I never say enough good things about Nintendo, which I'll own that because I don't own a Switch.
Yeah, you better.
But, and I still think like the newest Kirby game, it looks great, but I just haven't had a chance to play it. And I do mean to actually catch up on some more of the Nintendo stuff because I like a lot of the Nintendo
You know, a
games.
game I was super excited for,
What's
but
that?
I gotta get my hands on still is that pirate game for Xbox One.
Yeah, and see, I don't hear good things about Xbox games, and it's kind of sad because I really do feel that if Xbox was better, it would push PlayStation to be even better because that's how a competitive atmosphere works. If one,
I think
PlayStation
360 drowned out PlayStation 3 though.
but they came back.
Yeah.
And it took a while, but they didn't give up because that's how a competitive nature works. Is they know that they only have one person to really beat because Nintendo's kind of always been their own thing. But it's just an opportunity where right now Xbox isn't even being competitive with them. They're like, oh, we can take as long as we want on our exclusives because what are they going to do? Compare us to nobody?
Well, they dropped a bunch of exclusives that I wanted, so that's kind of deterred me from trying to pick up their system.
Like the funniest trailer I saw was, you know how they always do the graphic comparison trailers?
Oh yeah, the graphic comparison for God of War.
So they always show the PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4 comparisons between the three.
And Nintendo.
No, they don't always
do Nintendo occasionally. They occasionally do Nintendo.
I occasionally sneak in the Nintendo one that always looks the worst. But so what they do is on this one, they have 3 black boxes and just God of War on PlayStation. I was like, that is so good. I mean, it's proving the fact that they just cannot get things right on Xbox. And I really don't want to hate on them. I loved my 360.
Well, I wanted Phantom Dust. I wanted Phantom Dust so bad. That game had me so ready to go, ready to rock. I was super stoked for that. And then they faded away to nothing. And it's like, if you can't get me excited for it, man, I can't get on board.
Right.
Have you ever been like super pissed, like something that like was coming out that you were like, super. You know what? I guess that's the subject of today's show.
Honestly, that is. I mean, what today really feels like we have to make this about the hype.
Yes.
I mean, we God of War. It felt kind of funny because you know how Amazon's now releasing games for $48 on if you pre-order them.
I didn't know that.
Well, you get a
I'm
discount.
not a digital guy. Remember?
Well, if you pre-order a game on Amazon, you get a discount using Amazon Prime. It really takes away from that feeling that we used to get when we had to go to the midnight releases.
Oh, I remember midnight releases.
First thing in the morning. Like I always feel like in early 2000s, it was like that was a big deal where we used to go.
Game launch. What's a memorable game launch for you?
Well, the most memorable. I've been to a lot of them, but it's definitely picking up Final Fantasy Lightning Returns, the game that no one played that I loved.
Which one was that? Was that for 13?
It's Final Fantasy 13-3.
Okay.
As much of a headache that is, it's funny because I liked all 3 of them. The story was on them, but the third, what they did is they got more experimental on how the gameplay worked. And the third one was like Majora's Mask. So what they did is they gave you 12 days, and you basically cycle through the same world over and over again over these 12 days, and you can kind of change how the story works over those days.
Does that feel kind of cheap though, man?
You would think, but what they did is they really changed the combat. What they did is the class system. As you're fighting, you could quickly switch between all these different classes, and it was a really innovative system and kind of a boring world.
See, I think Final Fantasy's always kind of done that a little bit. I remember when 7 came out. Hype for 7, everyone loved 7, and then they started doing those weird little offshoots where it's like it kind of felt like they were kind of milking.
Dirge Cerberus.
Yes, that's right. It was you explain that because you own that, don't you?
Of course I own that. No, I bought that game the day it released, and it was just a really bad version of Devil May Cry with this like wedged in Final Fantasy VII B story that made no sense and had no purpose at all.
See, now do you feel like that was like them diluting the product? Because like I remember like anytime anything Final Fantasy came out after 7 hit, they go, oh my goodness, it's 3 discs, it's a masterpiece, it's this great story.
Final Fantasy
it's
is hype.
Score. Final Fantasy was hype for the longest time, and then like we just kind of died out with hype because I remember like, okay, don't get me wrong, I love the game Final Fantasy Tactics, but I remember when Tactics came out, everyone's like, oh, it's a new Final Fantasy game, and they're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, and see, for me, it was like, oh, you love 7, and then I bought 8. 8 was amazing, and it's like, oh.
8 was fun.
And then they're like, oh, they dropped 9.
Nobody liked 8, though.
I feel like that one ended up...
Friend of the show, Ned, loved 8. I remember in junior high, had the little Lionheart necklace and everything, too.
People love the design, I think, of 8. They liked a lot of, like, the summons in it. They liked a lot of the...
Nobody liked the draw system.
Friend Kyle, he really enjoys the Gunblade.
Yep.
And, they had cool designs in that game, but the gameplay was... I love the card game. I mean,
the card game was fun.
The card game...
Triple Triad. Yeah.
So, that was great. And it kind of... When you have repeated hits like that, it creates this major hype. But to kind of get back to the Lightning Returns, picking that up at midnight. So I showed up and there was like 400 people at GameStop. And, I'm like super excited. Well, come to find out, it was the same day as Call of Duty, Battlefield 4, and Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
So like you thought you were there with a bunch of Final Fantasy fans, and you're like, dude, this new game's gonna be great, and they're like, yeah, totally, and you're like, I can't wait to go and shoot a dude in the face, and the other guy's like, what are you talking about? We're getting on boats to go pirate shit, and then someone else is like, what are you talking about? It's all about that magic and summons.
Dude, it was crazy, just them arguing between Battlefield and Call of Duty. It was so nuts.
Oh, dude, because that would have been what, Ghost at that time?
I think it was the only year where they both came out on the same day on console.
Good.
But with that story, so I
for the record, Battlefield over Call of Duty any day.
Bad Company.
Bad Company was
over
solid.
Call of Duty, I would say. But so I go in to pay for this Final Fantasy game. I had the only copy sitting on the table.
Aww.
So, hundreds of copies of games. One Final Fantasy was sitting out.
That counter's just stacked full, and then there's just the one Final Fantasy game.
And 10, 15 years before that, Final Fantasy would have been that game, would have been that pile of games.
Oh, absolutely.
And Medal of Honor would have been that one game.
Yep.
And it makes me so mad. And I know you've been to a bunch of them.
I've been to a few. Me and actually the announcer candidate. Oh, I gotta see if I can dig up that footage. I remember we went to the Xbox 360 launch.
Yeah.
And we were running around. And we were just harassing people about it.
Wasn't that Blockbuster?
We went to Best Buy, and we went to, I think, outside Circuit City. It might have been a Media Play. I think it was Circuit City.
Circuit City.
It's probably Circuit City. I think Media Play already dissolved by then.
They're all gone anyways. It doesn't matter.
Oh, man, I miss Media Play. Media Play was nice.
So you went to the Xbox launch.
So we went to the Xbox launch, and we were just running around because I had my camera at the time, and we had like the Xbox microphone for karaoke.
Yeah.
And Canada threw on his suit, and we were running around doing like fake interviews, and he was just making fun of people. It was awesome. It was. Man, I'm really kind of upset that Comedy Central never picked me up for a television show at this rate.
But I remember you. Also, I remember you picking up Scott Pilgrim at one point as well.
Oh yeah, for the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Not exactly game related, but there's a lot of game references in that movie. Great movie.
We count Scott Pilgrim.
We'll count Scott Pilgrim just because it earned it.
Yep.
One of the best digital games of all time, and actually made me buy a game digitally.
So you went.
I
picked it up?
Yeah, I remember I went to go to. I was like, oh man, I don't know if I should go get this, and you're like, go pick it up. I ran to, I think it was like Meijer or something.
It was Myers.
And went to the store, and like there was those long lines, and I'm like, oh man, a lot of people really like Scott Pilgrim. This is cool. Because like it kind of tanked box office wise.
Oh yeah, it totally did. It's instant cult classic.
And like I get in line, and it's like, so you guys like this movie too? And they're like, what are you talking about? We're here to pick up Black Ops. And I'm like, well, I'm in the wrong area. I headed to the back of the store, and I head to the back of the store, and I got my Scott Pilgrim shirt on just because, I got to represent when you're picking up your favorite gear. And I'm sitting there, and by the DVD rack, there's this one lone guy, and he's got a Scott Pilgrim shirt on too. And it's just that awkward silence of, it's like, did you accidentally run into the Call of Duty people too? And it's like, yep.
Well, even I went to the release of the Super NES Mini.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know they did like releases for that.
It was kind of spur of the moment. A guy I know, Tom, he's like, hey, are you going to come get in line with me to pick up a Mini SNES? I was like, well, I don't have the money for it, but I'll come and get in line anyways, because I knew one of our other friends, Manpreet, was like, oh, he wanted one. I was like, I'll come hang out with Tom. And I'm just talking to him, and then Manpreet kind of cuts in line. He gets my voucher. He totally got one because of me, and I haven't even got to play it yet.
Oh man, really?
No, he's like,
steal it from him, borrow it from him.
Use it anytime, but doesn't have answers.
You should definitely borrow it from him because I want to do a Super Nintendo episode with you.
We definitely should. So we're in this line, right? They're all Nintendo fans. So what are they doing? Me and Tom are talking. All of them are on Switches.
Doing DSs?
No, they're all on their Switches.
Really?
Oh yeah. So there was, because they only had like 10 copies of the thing in the store, and they had vouchers for them. So these other 8 people are just sitting there. Half of them are playing on their Switch. I was like, that's ingenious.
People playing Skyrim on there?
At that time, probably Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Breath of the Wild was the biggest thing ever.
Okay, like Breath of the Wild, you have that. You've played that.
Yes.
That, I was super excited for that. Like Zelda games have always kind of like fascinated me.
And then you never beat any of them?
No, I'll beat the one on Super Nintendo and everything. But okay, I was allured. No, I think that Breath of the Wild is going to be the one that's actually going to get me back into Zelda games.
You can borrow it anytime.
Well, I don't have a system for
I
that.
have a thing called the Wii U. I'm the only one in the world with one.
I know.
It's about as rare as your Virtual
Belongs in a
Boy.
museum. Well, maybe I'll trade you a Virtual Boy for a Wii U. But the way that they advertise that game where you can kind of do anything with the environment, that's kind of how the other games were portrayed to me. And that's, I think, why I never got into them. Because I remember the hype for when Zelda finally went 3D on 64. Everyone loved it, but I think I was let down by the promises. People were like, oh, it's going to be environmental. Like, you can go and light a stick on fire and then use that stick to, like, burn down a bush or light a torch to go and, like, solve puzzles and stuff. And
So
I
the
thought
hype
it was going to be...
So the hype kind of let you down on that one.
Absolutely.
I mean, to really hone back in on the whole hype idea, Breath of the Wild was last year's biggest game. And by far, not only did it have like huge viewership
But
on
I think
YouTube,
it lived up to the hype itself.
it did, and then it kind of like got a war. It was landing perfect reviews. I think on Metacritic, it's still the highest reviewed game, and the hype was so massive for that game. I am still impressed that they actually landed how they expected to land. I mean, they completely revitalized that franchise, doing something completely new. First open world Zelda game.
Plus, you could jump. Like, I was super Sketchmo, and they're like, you can jump and climb things. I'm like, who the hell do you think you are?
You're not Zelda.
You're not Zelda. I should just be able to only jump off of cliffs. But Breath of the Wild, I think, was one, like, from what I've seen and what I've gotten to play, because I've gotten, like, maybe 5 minutes tops hands-on so far with it.
You just have to borrow mine, man.
I think that it is the Zelda game that I've been waiting for that was kind of hyped up to me over years. Because there's been a lot of games that have been hyped up to me that I've just been horribly disappointed at. Like I said, everyone loves Zelda on 64. Not a big fan. I was Super Nintendo fan. Another game, what is it? I got into the Elder Scrolls series, speaking of Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
And everyone was into freaking Fable at the time. You were a Fable guy, weren't you?
Peter Montague sold you on that.
Oh, I was so excited for that because, like, I was a huge fan of Morrowind and, like, how big and expansive the world was. I'm like, ooh, Peter Montague's making this thing. And he come out on stage and he's like, we're going to go and have it where you can cut down a tree and the tree will slowly regrow over time and your character ages over time and you can drop a petal in the water and watch it ripple. And
the man sold like every part of your life to you. He could sell you on anything. He essentially was the Kickstarter of the early 2000s.
Yes.
He would throw any idea in his mind at you and sell you on it just to eventually take your money and disappoint you horribly.
I always felt like he would go out on stage and, like, present something. Like, they'd be like, here's the game, Peter. Go out and sell it. And he'd go out on stage, do his presentation, come back, and he'll be like, what do you guys think of that? And they're like, we don't have any of that. And he's like, well, we can put it in, right? And he's like, no. Just like his development team has got to have, like,
Lionhead Studios, they're like, okay, Peter, stick to the cue cards.
Stick to the script.
Please, for the love of God, do not go off the cue cards. And he's like, you can be God and you can create anything you want. And at the end of the game, you can still make more things and make it last forever.
The game makes money and it's in 3D virtual reality.
And they're like, Peter, all you could do is hit X to chop a log. The
Yes.
tree does not grow back.
Yes.
But no, that guy...
He promised you the world, man. He promised you a world.
He did, and it's like every time I was a Fable fan. That was one of the highlights of Xbox.
Don't get me
to
wrong. All in all, it was a pretty decent game. Not really to my liking, but it was a pretty decent action adventure RPG.
But it did nothing.
But it did
that
nothing that he
promised.
said. Oh, the hype on that was so high, and the disappointment was even higher.
And then the other good game that I remember from that era, besides Fable, that would get just tons of hype because Xbox was dominant at the time. So 360, those games were always the biggest
360 always had the best run of everything.
And the exclusives, I still say that PlayStation had some, but they were always never as big because there was just so many more people playing Xbox.
360 over PS3 in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. And then Gears of War 3. I mean, 2 was great. But 3, I mean, they landed that trailer.
Yeah, they and then they brought back the because I remember the very first trailer for the original Gears of War. They did Gary Jules' Mad World, which I love his rendition of that song, and I know that from Donnie Darko because that was when it got super popular.
Yep,
because it was him covering an older song, but yeah, they brought that back for that trailer,
and they nailed it.
Yeah,
and it's crazy because people were excited because Gears of War was good. Gears of War 2 was great. And then they're like, the third one was just promising the world.
You literally talked about this on the last episode, Gears of War 3, because that's your go-to cheap game, too.
Well, because Come on, dude, the hype. I mean, I bought Bulletstorm. I bought the game for a beta. I bought a game on the hype of a game that wasn't even released yet.
Well, I remember people bought Crackdown for the Halo 3 thing.
I mean, and it worked. I mean, at that time was kind of where
Halo dropped off too with the whole like almost like a disenfranchised thing, like what Final Fantasy did, where they're like, oh, here's a tactics game, here's a first-person shooter. Remember, what is it, Halo? After Halo 3, they went and they did that Halo Wars.
I think ODST came out, and then they went to Halo Wars.
Yeah, that ODST where it's like you don't even play a Spartan, you just play a common soldier.
Yeah, which I actually like the best because they give you health.
Yeah, that wasn't...
It was kind of a nice change because it's like, okay, I don't just run at them and shoot a bunch and then hide until I get my health back, run out and shoot a bunch. It's like, okay, I actually have to think about this a little bit.
Well, okay, they had that, and then they had Halo Wars, and then like just anytime a franchise tries to go too far outside of their normal core gameplay, like even now, I was super disappointed. I had to explain to someone that Final Fantasy 15 on mobile phone was not the same as Final Fantasy 15 on the thing, because they did that stupid port of
the chibi robot, the chibi version.
No, not chibi. It was I'm not talking about that. Not Bravest. What is it called?
Okay,
not that. No, it was one of those stupid kingdom building games that I don't want to ever drop a name on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they made a Final Fantasy spin-off of a kingdom building game.
Yes, and
free to play nonsense.
And it has all the Final Fantasy 15 characters and stuff. And he's like, it's just a copy of this. He's like, I remember playing Final Fantasy back in the day. And I'm like, there's an actual game for that. So I had to like divert him and reconvince him that Final Fantasy was not terrible, but at the same time, it's like, dude, come on, why would they do that? That just takes away from the quality of the name of the brand.
I mean, they dilute their franchise just
absolutely.
A ton. And then I wonder, like, being a huge Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts fan, so this year, the big game, to me, is definitely Kingdom Hearts 3. I know I'm saying it now, and I will own up to it. I do believe Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming out this year.
Yeah, and I was told that it was supposed to be out on the Wii, so where's that at?
I know, it's a sequel to a 10-year-old game at this point.
Remember, though, like, people started buying Wii's as soon as it got rumored for that. They're like...
Actually, I don't remember that ever
Kingdom Hearts
being a thing, because I guess the Wii... I didn't
this
follow
is like
the
back
Wii
in the
that
days
close,
like G4 TV, man. Back in like...
I think that's before the Wii, dude.
No, that was still around mid-2000s.
I don't know anymore. But, I don't know, like Kingdom Hearts 3. So I'm planning on buying that game as soon as it comes out because I've played all of them. I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan.
Do you have all the little weird off spins too?
1.5 and 2.5.
No, I'm not even talking about
Final
those.
Mix.
I'm not even talking about those. I'm talking about, was it Chain of Memories?
Yep, which is on 1.5.
Okay. Did they incorporate that in that?
Yes. I guess when I say 1.5, Kingdom Hearts 1.5 has each one of them contain each game that they've re-released now.
Okay. Pause. We're going to start here. So Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 out on PlayStation 2.
Correct.
Then they had Chain of Memories, right?
Yep.
Which was a Game Boy Advance game. And then they had like 265 and a half days or whatever it was. Kingdom Hearts.
No, it's 300. I think 300. Dude, I don't know why you're going into this. I don't remember these.
Because the timeline.
The franchise is so messed up that it's hard to even remember the order they released.
For you, I guess.
So what they ended up doing is they repackaged all those games and they put them onto two. They made Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and Kingdom Hearts 2.5, and what it incorporated was all 5 of the games, and then they made a kind of a prologue for 3.
Okay. So basically it's the almost HD full everything.
Yep.
Full incorporating. So if you pick up those games, you will have known everything.
You'll have everything. Good. And I loved them. I still like those games. I like the style of the game. I like how they use Disney and a Final Fantasy kind of combination.
It's the combination of the two, I guess, brands.
Franchises, dude. Not brands.
Why is it not a brand?
Because a brand is a company name.
Well,
it's not a company. It's a product.
Well,
a product is a franchise.
All right.
Unless there's only one, then it's just a product. It's not a franchise if there's only one of them.
Well, they merged everything into one.
It's not Final Fantasy the company. It's Square Enix.
No, it's Final Fantasy
Square
the
Enix
company.
is the brand.
Square Enix hasn't done Bushido Blade, so to me, they're just a Final Fantasy company. Okay. I have my reasons. Let me have my reasons.
Terrible.
They're good reasons.
I don't know, man. With so Kingdom Hearts, that's coming out hopefully this year. But
Why do you think it's coming out this year, though? I mean, why do you honestly, legitimately think? I mean, they did that trailer for it recently. They showed a little gameplay of the Toy Story stuff, which was super cool. And I admit that it looks really good, looks fun.
I guess from a corporate view, last year was a huge game. And Square Enix is a public
Huge game was huge game being Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, 15 came out, and then they had the trickled DLC events throughout the whole year for it,
which is still actually catering pretty well into it.
And they just announced they're doing I think another year of DLC for that game, which it's great because there's a multiplayer feature and all these other features. They've done a really good job building.
They did a VR build for that. They incorporated where you could actually get the car to fly and everything.
Well, the flying car was actually in the game. That was never extra.
But aren't they doing worlds up in the sky and stuff? I thought.
No.
I thought they were trying to expand out. They brought in
What you should try to do is you should try playing the game before talking about it.
Well, all right, fine. It's funny because that's one of the reasons why I bought a PlayStation 4, but they keep adding to it, so I don't know when my buy-in point is.
It's almost like you should just borrow it from your friend and just play it.
Yeah, and then go through the 12 gigs of updates. I gotta get an external hard drive before I do that, man.
But so again, Kingdom Hearts. We're getting off topic.
All right, my bad.
So Kingdom Hearts, I'm actually getting. I think it's coming out this year because you have the corporate structure of how they have to have a big release every year to kind of feed that revenue for the following year.
Yeah.
But I also believe it just because of how much content they've been slowly bleeding out. There's no way that they're dropping this much content and not putting it out this year. Square Enix has no big games releasing this year. They don't have a Hitman game coming out. Tomb Raider comes out in the fall, so it's Q3. So Kingdom Hearts has to be Q4 Christmas time. They have to land it on Christmas.
Don't you think they'd wait another year and delay it? I mean, they're delaying. They're doing the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Yeah, but that won't come out until at least 2020 or later because it's Square Enix.
5 years from now.
Square Enix likes to announce their games when they first draw a picture on a piece of paper, not actually when they have some kind of concept art. So I don't know. I strongly believe it comes out this year, but what I'm starting to be afraid of is now what I think Kingdom Hearts 2 came out in 2005.
Okay.
So it's been 13 years waiting for a direct sequel. And now it's hyped. You have to admit that people have been talking about this game for so many years.
Like I said, I remember them saying hey, it's probably going to launch on the Wii. And I mean, that was 2 Nintendo generations ago now.
So now if this game does release with all the hype, is it really going to hold up to that hype? I mean, I almost feel like it's unobtainable now. Because
no, it's not Half-Life 3. Okay.
Half-Life 3.
Half-Life 3 owns the hypeage.
Or Portal 3 even. Portal 3 has been
anything
pretty
3
high.
By Valve.
Yeah, any of the Valve 3s.
Team Fortress 3.
So
Half-Life 2
I guess
Episode
at this point,
3.
Do you think that the hype, how it's really affected
Left
this game?
Left 4 Dead 3.
Quit fucking interrupting me.
I'm sorry, I had to get that.
So, do you think this hype's really going to change how people perceive this game? Because any big game that's coming out, I mean, if the hype is that high, can it really be as good as people expect it to be?
Well, okay. Do you think that hype and expectations are considered 2 separate things? Because hype, I think, could just be excitement for a game, but hype feeds expectations of what you think the game's going to do.
True.
Because, for instance, Mass Effect 3 did not live up to
its expectations.
To the expectations.
But it was hyped.
But the expectations, it was still hyped. You know what I mean?
Yep. But if that game wasn't as hyped and it was kind of like people bought it and then liked it and told their friends about it and kind of built it up,
then does the hype continue?
A more natural hype versus marketing. Oh, this game sucks. Bad scores. Everyone hates it, and it just crashes and burns.
There's games that are marketed really heavily and then just fail horribly. Like you said, where they go and they'll be like, you can't release press information.
Are they failing because of bad content, or are they failing because of bad marketing? Because there have been games before that. No Man's Sky.
Yes.
I mean, that's really.
I was thinking about that when you said that.
That's a really iconic game that was not only hyped, but its expectations were huge because of what they had already shown.
Well, I think that they've actually finally reached expectations because weren't you saying who covered a review? They keep doing annual reviews for it.
I feel like IGN kind of did the big early ones I remember, but Kotaku is the one that recently did, hey, 1 year later, this is what this game is like, and
Why
we
are they
actually
still
like it
reviewing
now.
it, though?
Well, they're reviewing it because now Xbox One is getting it.
Oh.
So it's no longer going to be exclusive on PlayStation. I feel like, again, the exclusivity was temporary. I'm sure to some point. The growth period for it's obviously gone for the PlayStation.
But you know what? It might actually find a full new audience now then with that.
Which would be good because I've played it since a lot of those patches, and I think the game is good. I still fully support it, and it's an indie company that made it, and
So-
you should really support that.
Support Sean Murray. David says so. So do you think that the game has now lived up to its hype?
No.
No?
I think the hype was so high on that game that they could.
Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. Did the game live up to its expectations now in the status that it's in?
It definitely lived up to my expectations, but again, I think the hype drove people's expectations to unreachable.
Hype can die down though and jump back up. And do you have hype for this game now based on it finally meeting your expectations?
No,
Really?
it's too.
You think it's too late?
I feel like the game cycle, like a game can still be good, but it's not talked about. Like it's not that coffee table type of game anymore. Like it's not like God of War, for instance. If I go somewhere, I sit down with a bunch of people that have video games. I could talk about God of War, and it could become this this big conversation. No Man's Sky. If I bring that game up, people are just going to talk crap about it because.
But that's the whole thing with the franchise, though. God of War has legacy behind it, where No Man's Sky is kind of building its own legacy because if it's still around after a long period of time and it evolves, that's one of the wonderful things about. I'm going to actually side with you on the whole digital thing debate real quick.
Yep.
That's one of the beautiful things about digital is if you have a game from launch, it can evolve into something much better over time. Thing that we started talking at the very, very beginning of the episode, bring it around full circle, Overwatch.
Yep.
Overwatch is a completely different game between balances, characters, levels, modes. I mean,
But they built on a successful game. I feel like No Man's Sky is sold well, and then it crashed hard, and then the internet just became real toxic towards that game. The guy got like death threats and stuff because of that game.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the internet just went way too far about it, and that's where I feel that hype is dangerous because yeah, that company made a lot of pre-orders. They did really well in the beginning because of that, but man, when it went bad so fast that they could. I'm surprised to see it going on Xbox, but I completely understand why they would jump ship to find a new community.
what generally makes you, well, by going into Microsoft territory, they totally are going to find a new community. I think they might actually do really well, and hopefully that will help them grow as a company.
To
And
develop more stuff.
they've already learned like a lot of lessons really quick. And if anything, they can now, with what they've learned, develop, change, make things into something more successful, and finally put the product out that they've wanted to, and take a sense of pride in that.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you normally look for when what is usually what fuels your hype train?
I'm a huge sucker for gameplay trailers, not
You
video
say
trailers.
that, and then you and your stupid Spider-Man bullshit.
I've seen gameplay trailers and they look awesome.
No, that's not gameplay. That's
No.
all pre-canned animation bullcrap.
I've seen more since we've last talked about
Okay,
Spider-Man.
then you need to freaking show me something because I still don't believe.
And I will. But gameplay trailers like the game that's coming out real soon, Detroit Becoming Human.
Yes.
I was interested.
Yes.
But I didn't know what to think because of how those games all are very different from one another. But once I saw them at E3 play through one of the scenarios where you talk to this robot on a roof, you're a cop.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it
That
splits
was
and all this.
good.
But seeing that made me actually
Seeing
believe
how it
in the
actually
game.
plays.
Not seeing some video of just something in cinema. I actually want to see how the game plays.
Well, we come from the time of remember the Killzone thing when they're like, this is actual gameplay for Killzone 2, and it was like pre-rendered.
Oh yeah, it was mocked up.
It was all mocked up. Like people would just go and touch up stuff, and they're like, this is in-game graphics, and it's like in your like cutscenes, yeah, it's in-game. But I mean, we came from a time and an era where it's like you could put anything down, and as long as you go, oh wow, that looks really good, that's fine, but none of it would ever be gameplay.
And
that's why I hate teasers. I still hate teasers to this day. Like, I want some damn gameplay. Show me what the hell I'm doing, how it interacts, and I can tell your fake gameplay from your real gameplay.
Oh, of course, and and I understand why they do those things because again, it starts kind of that hype train. It gets
Getting me all riled up now.
It gets people riled up for the games, and which is great. But once I actually see the game played,
yes,
is kind of where I'm sucked in. But I used to be that guy that any trailer, you throw me any graphical like phenomenon, and I'm just sucked in. I'm like, I want more. But now I'm like, okay, I've been burned enough times. I am so.
It's like an abusive lover video games. You're like, I keep coming back. Why do you keep hurting me?
I bought a lot of bad Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
And I still buy them. But man,
did you download that mobile one? You're like Final Fantasy 15 on my phone.
No, I don't play games on my phone. I can't. I tried Fortnite on my phone.
Did you really?
Yeah, I played one round. I was like, this feels so wrong. I'm like, I'm done with this.
Fair enough. Kudos to them for getting to other platforms, though.
Always.
PUBG's available now, too, I think.
I mean, if they can simulate something similar to their actual gameplay, that's great. But I don't know. Hype is very dangerous to me because if I get too excited about something, I feel like it almost is a guaranteed letdown because how can you make something Kingdom Hearts? I just don't see how that game can be what I want it to be because I've had 12 years to think about that game. So, I've thought about it as long as they've developed it.
Gameplay looks good, though. It looks like it carries over a lot from what it was. So it's derived from good source material. And if anything, even if they make a small expanse on it, would you be happy with that? Or are you going to be super upset because it's not like everything brand new?
I'm going to love it. I know I'm going to love it, but I just feel like if it's not that really great game.
Is that your fanboy getting the best of you, though?
It is. It really is.
As long as you own that, that's fine.
My kryptonite will always be Square Enix. I feel like they've always done a good job between Dragon Warrior, Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy. I love RPG games, so I'm a huge sucker for their games, which is fine. That's the type of game I play, and they're honestly the company that made me love video games. So that's completely understandable for me. But what I hate is when I find out I like a game, but everywhere I look is toxic. Good example, you mentioned Mass Effect 3.
Yep.
That was actually the first Mass Effect I played.
I still haven't played any of them.
And when I played it, I liked it. And all I saw around me was how much people hated it. And it made no sense to me because it was a great game. It played well. The story seemed fine. But everyone was just hating on that game. And I was like, it's still a good game. It's just that didn't meet what they expected. And of course, then I went back and played them in order and realized that one really should be the one people should hate because that game played horribly.
Yeah, but that was new and exciting at the time.
Exactly.
And it changed stuff up.
But you can't go back and play it now.
So people who are playing God of War 4 now, if they jump back into the older games, do you think they're going to be like, this game sucks? God of War should never have been created, but God of War 4 is the best.
If they go back to the PS2 one, they might be surprised on how bad it feels.
But it's going to play like a completely different game.
But if they go back to the HD remade one on PS3, on their God of War Saga or whatever,
yeah,
I think they would be pleasantly surprised that game holds up well. So, I don't know. It's just so dangerous seeing how these games, and especially we live in the age of hype because of social media.
Oh, dude, it's there's so much more because as soon as one person says anything, it all of a sudden explodes out into this thing. And even if it's just like a sliver of information, you get taken out and horribly misconstrued.
I mean, I don't really want to bring movies into this, but I mean, it seems like especially Marvel, every Marvel movie is just in Star Wars. Those movies are so massive that we saw Star Wars 8 together. I mean, people were ecstatic for that movie walking in. Look how they left.
Yeah.
They just kind of left like, oh, that was okay. And I'm not trying to dig into Star Wars, but what I'm saying is, think of how excited they were because how much people love 7.
Yeah.
And then 8 just did not meet that expectation and crashed.
Okay, we'll jump on movies for half a second here because I want to get back onto the thing because I do have something to say about games that I've been super excited for.
Okay.
So I think with Star Wars, it's 7 was not great.
Oh, see, I thought it was one of the better ones.
8 wasn't great either, but 7 I understand was necessary to go and figure out how to go and start the saga again, make the plot, set up. I was excited for what 7 was going to deliver on afterwards.
Yep.
However,
it just didn't.
I'm not a fan for the Han Solo movie, with the exception of Childish Gambino being in that because I'm super stoked to see him as Lando. That's gonna be dope. Donald Glover is amazing.
Yep, and that's great. And I, being a huge comic book fan, I think Avengers should be amazing. But somehow I feel like there are so many. There's no way you can have 70 plus characters in this movie and it still be good enough by showing all those characters. I
don't think they're getting enough screen time for each of your characters that you like.
I think the bad screen time is going to eat up the potential for more screen time with the better characters.
Weren't they supposed to have that as 2 movies initially?
And they are. There are 2 movies. The next one is coming out a year from now.
Okay, they are doing...
The 4th movie or whatever is 1 year after the release, which is fine. But I don't know. It just seems like every movie's like, look at all the DC movies. I just feel like every movie now, people just get ramped up incredibly fast as soon as that first trailer hits. And then they either crash down or it kind of flatlines, or it's just people get slightly more excited about it. Like they can't get that excited about it because it's so overdone already.
You know what sucks? Having a cult classic. Like, was it? I remember when Red Faction was coming out, when Guerrilla was coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Super hyped for that game.
Yeah,
it was a great game. Red Faction Guerrilla. Great game. Finally a decent like return to the franchise and everything.
Reinvented franchise at that.
Reinvented, and it was so good, and like it didn't get picked up, so it couldn't run the distance that it should, and it was really a solid game.
And I wonder though, because it's re-releasing as a remastered edition.
I'm wondering if it's going to have another life now.
Yep, and you know, cult classics have that potential, especially with being a whole generation later, that it may hit a different crowd of people and it may land a lot better.
I hope it does. I think it was maybe just ahead of its time and everything. I mean, but to be fair, that game had like a really good physics engine for destroying entire buildings and stuff. That's what usually lures me in.
Yeah, it had your mechanic bait that you like so much.
Mechanic bait, is that really what you're calling it now? That is what it is. And well, anytime, okay, I like physics in games.
Yeah, I guess physics bait would probably be better. You're just a sucker for physics.
I'm a sucker for physics. That's just common knowledge. Like anything with physics I love because it shows the potential of what the hardware can do. It shows the power behind the hardware, but the more realistic we can simulate stuff, the cooler it is. Frickin' Peter Montague with his stupid drop a pebble, build a dam, and then it diverts water.
Come back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just the hate train comes back. But I like any time that like a physics engine, because it shows like, hey, we can do stuff that you can do in the real world. But then it's the trick of making that super absurd and figuring out how gameplay can be fun around that. Like a game that I still haven't picked up. Did you ever play Boom Blocks?
No.
See, Steven Spielberg game. So now look, we got our movie tie-ins. He like produced that, but it's a game where it's like physics. It's like Jenga, where you're like throwing balls at like a Jenga board on like Wii. Looked great, and it was all physics based, but it was just like, okay, they got simulation of a Jenga block, which Jenga's just a fun game because it's just blocks falling, and then they go, hey, throw marbles at it. Like it's just good fun, but it's within a
You definitely love the physics. So, like you were saying before, so what game to kind of wrap all this up? What game are you looking forward to? Like, what's your big hyped game for 2018?
My big hyped game? I don't think I have one yet.
I'm so sad.
I'm holding out, man. I think that something's gonna drop probably. Usually middle of the year is when something
like
comes out.
June, when that E3 show comes out, and then they just drop like 80 games on us.
You know that thing? Like I don't know. I don't think no one knows about that E3 thing.
We're gonna have to do some coverage on it and kind of go over it because I'm a horrible sucker for award shows, but I'm a bigger sucker for business presentations because I nerd out on that business stuff.
That's usually when you start diving into the companies.
Gotta get those quarterly statements.
Yeah, you get their quarterly statements. You're like, this is gonna release this year. Why? Because there's secret numbers for untitled AAA title.
Dude, Ubisoft is so bad about it. They use the craziest like code names for their statements.
What do you mean?
Oh, the Project Bloodshed, and it's like, oh, it's Far Cry, obviously. And then,
like you just like called it.
They're like, well, it's like Assassin's Creed hasn't been announced, but there's like pictures on the internet of pharaohs and assassins. Oh, this game, Project Sand, is coming out this year.
Project Sand. Awesome. So, what about you? What's your big hype for?
Dude, besides hopefully Kingdom Hearts, Spider-Man's it. I saw some recent coverage on Spider-Man, and Game Informer actually had this really like big spread in their newest issue, and I hate really advertising for them, but they got the exclusive coverage on the game. They showed like how the web slinging works, how the open world works, how the questing works.
If I see gameplay, then I'll be more inclined, but I've seen stuff that only looks like pre-rendered.
All you've really seen is E3 stuff, but you'll have to see this. It kind of won me over as far as I'm actually really excited for it, and it's coming real soon. But I mean, to kind of end all this, so hype is huge. It's everywhere, and social media only feeds it, both positive and negatively. And I'm just trying to figure out, do you think all this hype is good for the industry? Like, do you think it's really helping games? Because I feel like it kills more games than it helps. I've seen a lot of games go down that really toxic road where, oh, it's not at 9 or a better, so people start hating on it immediately. They're not even giving games a chance because people just, they're so quick to judge games now.
It's a double-edged sword, but it's a double-edged sword in the light. Like, you see it for what it's worth. Like, if something launches for it early, right? If you launch for it, then it goes and it becomes what is that for?
Just keep talking.
All right, fair enough. I'll just ignore it. If you're turning on lights on me over here. If you launch with no hype, then you get no coverage whatsoever. If you launch with too much coverage, then you've built too much of a hype. Games used to release demos, and like Tony Hawk 2, or the Tony Hawk game before that came out, that had no hype for it whatsoever. But it was on that Pizza Hut demo disc.
Yep.
And everyone loved it, and it got its own hype based on just being a solid game. But games don't release with natural hype anymore. Well, because you have to have some level of marketing, because no one will back a game if it's not marketed.
Well, on that topic, actually, today, Detroit Becoming Human just announced that they have a demo coming out tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yep. So they're kind of, I think, because they're not getting.
So that demo's going to be out by the time this episode's up. Then.
It'll already be out by the time the episode's out. And it kind of takes from that, because right now it doesn't have a lot of hype. That game has released a couple different videos. Some people loved what they originally saw. Then they saw some like kind of risky material with like kind of like a child abuse scene.
Yeah.
And it kind of made people frown on it. And he's like, it's an overall experience. He's like, it's not, you can't take it and just, it's really hard to cut and show that game off. So they're like, well, we don't have a choice but to demo this game. This is, and they did that for between Two Souls?
Beyond Two Souls.
Dude's getting late.
Get your shit right.
Right. So, they did that route, and I thought that actually helped that game out, because it kind of turned people onto the game a little bit, and I'm hoping this demo does the same. And I think they're hoping for that natural build, because otherwise they're looking at a really hard time selling that game right now, because it's going to get drowned by, like, the only thing I see online right now, people are going to be talking about God of War, Avengers, Han Solo, and Deadpool. I mean, that's going to eat up the whole month of May when that game releases. How are they going to possibly find time to really get on the internet with all that stuff coming out? So I don't know. It's a total double-edged sword right now, and I'm really hoping that good games can somehow make it through all of that, regardless of what people are saying about it.
I mean, check with the community, man.
Yeah, I know you're excited about nothing yet, but we're totally gonna find you a game by
I'm gonna get
E3.
something. I'll get something by E3.
I feel like we're gonna find you something, but I got some games I'm excited for, and we'd like to hear what you guys are excited for, because unlike DOS, there are plenty of good games coming out for the Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and then there's always those PC games that we know nothing about. So definitely let us know what you think, what's coming out. I want to hear what you're excited for. Maybe we can look more into it. Maybe we'll do some coverage on it on our show. And we'd also like to remind you guys, we're throwing our stuffs on YouTube. So if you have a friend that doesn't listen to SoundCloud or unwilling to just listen to a podcast, tell them our videos out there. Try to help us, because the more people you guys bring to us, the more content we feel comfortable bringing to you.
Yeah, the YouTube is a little lagged behind, but I mean, I think it's about 4 or 5. Probably about 4 or 5 episodes behind. We release that every off week that we don't release a new audio on SoundCloud for now. So.
Yeah, so eventually we will get those caught up as much as we can, and we're just trying to bring as much content to you as possible. Das is throwing some Spelunky online. I'm throwing some stuff online.
Oh yeah, we got some gameplay stuff on there. I got some Overwatch clips that I'll be dropping soon too.
Yeah, so we're just trying to make this as interactive as possible. If you guys got YouTube channels, share those with us so we can check out your stuff as well. Just do whatever you can to really reach out to us, because we want to hear from you. We want to involve you guys as much as we can into the show.
Yeah. And as always, thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Couch Trolls podcast. If you like this episode, you can find more on Facebook by searching Couch Trolls, or on Twitter at Couch_Trolls. I'm your announcer, Canada Sanchez, with Brian doing the sound. Thanks for listening.